Whether clawing on the elemental forces of nature or emulating the creatures of the animal world, druids are an embodiment of nature's resilience, cunning, and fury. That's like straight out of the 5th edition. I just took that. But in this video today, we're going to go through building out a druid. Maybe this is your first character. Perhaps you want to respec one of your companions into a druid. Whatever the case is, we'll go through that here today. We'll start out at level 1, looking at druid on a very base level to discuss the character creation process, go into a discussion about your subclass options, talk a little bit about standout traits, and close the video out going into some strong multi-class options. You can quickly navigate to any part of this video that interests you the most using the chapters in both the timeline and the description. And please don't forget to check me out on Twitch, where I stream every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Lastly, too, if there are any other classes you want information on, you can find a link to all of my class guides in the description as well as at the end of the video. But let's get started here on how to build a druid for beginners in Baldur's Gate 3. Loading into the game, let's have a conversation about your race options. Now, in Baldur's Gate 3, you do not need to worry about your race affecting anything. So just choose whatever race you want, because all of your ability scores are going to start at 8, and you're going to decide which ones get a +2 and a +1. So really, you're just going to get some minor bonuses here and there. It's nothing crazy. So choose the one that makes the most sense for you and the role play that you have in mind for your druid. Don't feel like you have to min-max this. That being said, let me go through some options that I really like for your druid, just because I like them. For one would be Wood Elf. Wood Elf is great because they also get to move 5 additional feet because they have the Fleet of Foot ability here. This is also true for the half Wood Elf. So if you decide to go with a half elf, you can simply choose a half Wood Elf and it will get the advantage just as well. In addition to, we get Fey Ancestry here for advantage on saving throws against Charm, Dark Vision, and Elven Weapon Training, which is going to give us longsword, short bow, and longbow proficiencies, which is actually quite nice because we have clubs, daggers, javelins, maces, quarterstaves, scimitars, sickles, spears, and then your elven proficiencies. So it's nice to kind of be able to sprinkle some of those additional proficiencies into it, especially both of the bow options you have if you want to go with any kind of range option or sword option if you so wish. Now, outside of that, I really like halflings in general. The lucky capability for the halfling is always great, but you get to roll. When you roll a 1 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll the die and must use a new roll. And I would go with the Strongheart halfling because it gives you an advantage on saving throws against poison. Some other fun options are definitely the Forest Gnome. If you're playing a druid, it just kind of fits the whole entire scope of being a druid. You get Speak to Animals for free, and it is a ability that you can use that lasts until long rest, and you always have the chance to speak to animals. You don't have to waste a spell slot on it. Also, you get Gnome Cunning, so you have an advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma throws. But the rest of this, have at it. Just choose whatever one makes the most sense for you. Maybe if you want to go with a shape-shifting druid, you maybe want to go half-orc. But I'm going to be 100% transparent. I don't know if savage attacks, when you land a critical hit with a melee weapon attack, you deal an extra dice of weapon damage. Never mind. In doing this video, I just found out that does not work. I was going to say, if you shapeshift, nope, this will not work if you shapeshift because you are not using a weapon attack for your shapeshift. But if you do any other kind of druid where you are maybe using Shillelagh here or any of the other abilities, you can get the advantage of a critical attack. So if you want to maybe go druid and multi-class into something that's more melee-oriented, half-orc would maybe be pretty cool or pretty fun for you. But don't feel like you're barred from any of the races on your option for druid. Go with what makes the most sense for you. For subclasses, you have 3 pretty diverse options. Now, Circle of the Land is your druid that is focused on casting spells. And that will really be the primary focus of this style of druid. What you're going to be doing here is essentially choosing a circle of land to fall in line with. And once you do that, it's going to give you certain spells. I'll show you in just a second here. But you'll also be given natural recovery, replenish expended spell slots while out of combat. And you have these natural recovery charges that are replenished per long rest. So if you want to be a casting druid that's focusing on a bunch of different spells, Circle of the Land is definitely going to be for you. And it's worth noting too that every single one of the subclasses gets access to Wildshape. It's only Circle of the Moon that has certain kind of special things with Wildshape, and we'll get into that when we talk about it. So even the Circle of the Land and Circle of Spores can turn into all of these different wild shapes here. Badger, spider, wolf, cat. So keep those things in mind. But let's go ahead and just select something here and push us up to level 3, because that's when we get to select our Circle of the Land. So basically what this happens here, how this works for the Circle of the Land Druid, is that whatever one you choose, these spells are always prepared, which is great. They don't count towards your max prepared spells, right? So this is, if we have max of 6 prepared spells, well, this circle gives us now 8 because these are always prepared. So Arctic is going to give us stuff like Hold Person and Spike Growth. Coast is going to give us Mirror Image and Misty Step. Forest, Hold Person and Barkskin. Swamp, Melf's Acid Arrow and Darkness. All these great abilities that you can take advantage of. It's worth noting here that you'll get access to these sets of Circle of Land spells at level 3, level 5, 7, and 9. Then at level 10, you'll get Nature's Ward, meaning you can't be charmed or frightened by elementals and fae. And disease and poisons no longer affect you, which are really nice, all really great things to have. And something that's a little bit different than 5th edition, you can choose whatever circle you want at the time that you are offered it. Meaning, let's say at level 3, which is what we are right now, I choose Arctic. Well, at level 5, I could choose Coast if I want without any issues at all. I would just simply get the level 5 Coast spells, which are Sleet, Storm, and Call Lightning. Then at level 7, I could choose Forest, which is Conjure Minor Elemental and Grasping Vine. It doesn't change the other 2 I've selected, it's just those are the set of spells that I choose. So it's a very nice thing to be able to do when you are going with a pure caster style of Druid. The Circle of the Moon Druid is focused on Wildshape. You have right here your Combat Wildshape, which is different than the standard Wildshape. And the difference here, I don't know if I can see, yeah, cool, is that Wildshape for the Circle of the Druid now uses a bonus action versus the other 2 circles have it as an action or an action. And this will, of course, use a Wildshape charge just like the other ones will. But the other thing you also get for Circle of the Moon is Lunar Mend. Expend spell slots to regain hit points while in Wildshape. This is a great ability because it basically allows you to kind of constantly stay active. And it's worth noting too, oh, by the way, the formula for the health here is you regain 1d8 hit points per spell slot level you've used. So if you do a level 3, it's 3d8. But what this allows you to do is, and it's a bonus action, which is even better, you're doing this while you're in Wildshape. And it's worth noting, and I'm going to go into a whole section on Wildshape in a second, but worth noting that Wildshape effectively acts as additional hit points, because you don't lose, if you lose full health on a Wildshape, you still go back to your normal shape with whatever health you had. So it's a great way to just have a ton of damage, a ton of way to kind of do a lot of different things. Now, Circle of the Moon does also give you special Wildshapes. So for example, right when you choose it, you can jump into Wildshape Bear, which is a bear. It's scary. At level 4, you get access to Dire Raven and Deep Ruth. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry. I'm butchering it. I don't mean to. But down the road, then you'll get Wildshape Panther at level 6 and Owlbearer at level 6. And you get Primal Strike, which means that your attacks while you're in beast form count as magical. Then level 8, you'll get Wildshape Saber-Toothed Tiger. You get, at level 10, Improved Wild Strike. So you can make 2 additional attacks after making Unarmed Strike while in Wildshape. And at level 10, you get your final round of wild shapes, which are Myrmidons. You can go air, earth, fire, or water Myrmidon. And then a Dilophosaurus, which is a dinosaur. So you have all those different wild shapes to jump into. It's definitely a very fun class because you are just turning into things and ripping stuff up. It's a really, really, really cool one. So if you want to go with a shape-shifting druid, Circle of the Moon is the one that makes the most sense for you. Lastly, though, we have the Circle of the Spores. So if Circle of the Land is focused on casting, Circle of the Spores is focused kind of a little bit on both. Definitely way more melee oriented than casting, but you still do get some spells every level. And you do as well with Circle of the Moon. It's kind of worth noting too, Circle of the Moon can cast all the generic spells that druids get as they level up. Same thing with Circle of the Spores. Circle of the Land, it just gives them special spells as they hit certain breakpoints. With Circle of the Spores, you are focused on more of the it's hard to call it undead. It's more the Last of Us style of zombies, but effectively you are using spores, and you have this ability, Symbiotic Entity. So gain 8 temporary hit points and deal an additional 1 to 6 necrotic damage while you have them. Cast Halo of Spores with double damage. So what does this all mean? Well, for one, Symbiotic Entity is going to give you temporary hit points, right? And those temporary hit points, it's 4 temp hit points per druid level, and you deal an additional 1d6 damage while you have them, of course. So this is nice because it's going to give you a ton of temporary hit points, and this makes the Spore Druid a huge candidate for multi-classing. Go into a Spore Druid Monk and you have a pretty disgusting guy to deal with. It does cost a Wildshape charge, and it is an action. And the other thing on here, it says casts Halo of Spores with double damage. Let's take a look now at Halo of Spores, because Halo of Spores is also going to be pretty sweet for you. So this is going to deal 1d4 damage, unleash a cloud of necrotic spores upon a target. This uses a reaction, so other reactions won't trigger this turn. Kind of keep that in mind here. So again, what you want to keep in mind is with that, you are triggering this on your turn. You are you are pressing this button, and it's going to trigger your Halo of Spores. They're going to shoot around you and do damage. So this is a great way to just finish things off. And you do double damage if you have your Symbiotic Entity active. So this gives you a chance to just go, okay, before I even use an action or a bonus action, I use my reaction and I just clear what's around me. In a 20-foot radius, I'm doing some damage here. So that's a really nice thing to be able to do. Keep in mind, this means you can't do stuff like attacks of opportunity or any kind of reaction that you would get from an item, but it's still a really cool way to just kind of clear the field that you can then use the rest of your actions throughout that turn. As you level up, though, you'll get access to Blindness, Detect Thoughts, Animate Dead in Gaseous Form at level 5, and level 6, you get Fungal Infestation. Target a beast or humanoid corpse and raise a zombie until next long rest. Counts as a reaction. So you basically just spend time making zombie bros to hang out with you. And fungal zombies are nothing to sneeze at. They've got like 16 strength, 16 constitution, and they're just going to basically be there to hit things or take damage for you. It's quite nice. And if you have an Oathbreaker Paladin, they can actually help them out. Because they are classified as undead. As you kind of level up, though, you'll get Blight, Confusion, Cloud Kill, Contagion. Lastly, at level 10, though, you get Spreading Spores. So you have Symbiotic Entity active, and then you create a cloud within 9 meters that deals 2d8 necrotic damage per turn to all enemies. And it lasts for 10 turns or until Symbiotic Entity deactivates. And it's a bonus action. So you just have a lot of really strong AoE capabilities as a melee-centric type of character, since you're really just in the thick of it using a lot of these abilities. So I think the Spore Druid is one that really couples well with a lot of the more melee-oriented multi-class options. So Wildshape is something you're going to be using on all of your different druids. So let's take a look at how it actually works here. So here is Halsin. Here is his stat line, if I can remember where the hell that is. You can see, good lord, I am all over the place. That's my saving throws. There's my stat line. 8 strength, 14 dex, 15 con, 8 intelligence, 17 wisdom, 12 charisma. I didn't touch his stats. I just let them be as they were. And we're going to go ahead and press Wildshape. And we're going to go into a bear. And it says here the polar bear has starting health of 30 hit points. While in an animal shape, you can't talk or cast spells. You take on the attribute of your beast form, excluding your intelligence, wisdom, and charisma scores. So let's kind of recap what that means. Sorry guys, I have terrible allergies today. So these scores stay the same, no matter what shape I assume. This is good for especially wisdom when it comes to any kind of charm save or anything like that. That's going to be really nice to kind of keep active. But my strength, dex, and con are going to take on the aspect of the shape that I select. And it's also important to know that I can cast a, let's see if I have a good concentration spell. I don't think I do because I'm an idiot. I don't. Do I? Do I? No, I don't. Well, if you have a concentration spell, you can simply, here, we'll cast this concentration spell, and it will remain active when I jump into bear form. So you would do those concentration spells before you become your wild shape. And you can see that it is active right here. It's active right, well, it's usually on over your portrait, but this is the ability to take a look at it in the lower left corner. I'm not sure how you would do this on console, but you can click this X to shut that concentration off. And now that I'm in bear form, I cannot cast any more spells. I'm done with my spells now, right? So in this form, I now have the new strength, dex, and con of this bear. And it's important to note too that this is my health. It's 30 health. If I lose all 30 of my health on this bear, I simply revert back to the health and character that I was before. This is what I was talking about a little bit ago. You effectively get a whole extra bit of health to do whatever the hell you want within the constraints of that specific wild shape. So it's fun to be able to basically use your wild shape to go run ramshot, go do some damage, do some whatever, get into a certain position, and swap back into normal form to then do whatever. If you are, of course, a Circle of the Moon, you can just kind of go crazy with your abilities in wild shape and have fun, or go to and fro. As I said before, you have Lunar Mend. We can just use this to stay in beast form for as long as possible. It really kind of delays me having to jump back, right? So that is how the wild shape works, and it allows you to really get a lot done by taking advantage of the effective hit point increase that you get while being in a wild shape, you know, since that's 30 hit points that you would not otherwise have. For skills and abilities, we're going to take a look at couple things here. Now, this is going to depend upon if you're playing the main character as a druid, or if you're maybe respecking Halsin or Jaheira, which are some of your companions, to be druids. And you would do so in a different way, just slightly. It's basically coming down to your charisma modifier. But let's go ahead and put all of our skills into, all of our ability points that we can into wisdom, max this out, and put a +2. Wisdom is how you're casting all of your spells. It's the most important stat as a druid. Now, I'm also going to assume you're not multi-classing, just going to go pure druid. And we're going to bring our dexterity up to 12, and our constitution up to 14, and our charisma up to 10. Now, from here, we can kind of make some decisions. Are we going to focus this on main character or not? And even if I wasn't doing this as the main character, I'd probably leave it at 8 to totally min-max it. But having 10, then into 12 charisma is good for our main character because we want to take a look at our conversational skills. The druid has no innate specialization in a conversational skill, and you'll be using them quite a bit as the main character as you push through the story. I have intimidation here because it's part of the background I've randomly selected, but you will not have this if you did not choose. I think we have soldier as our background on right now, but if you don't have that active, you won't have this. So at least having a baseline +1 to all of our charisma checks, which would include all these conversational skills like deception, intimidation, and persuasion, I think is very crucial to have. Outside of that, putting your 2 specialization points into insight and into perception, I think are crucial. I don't have that option here because the wood elf gets both specialization in stealth and perception. So I would invest a point in perception if I did not choose a wood elf. If I did choose a wood elf, it would probably be insight and maybe survival would probably make a little sense, or nature if you want to do that for your druid. I won't lie to you that things like nature and animal handling are 2 things that I chose personally on my ranger, and I almost never use them because you'll use animal handling if you don't have speak with animals active, and I have speak with animals active the whole time. So if you use this to kind of persuade animals if you can't just outright talk to them. So if you're going to have speak with animals active, don't ever use animal handling is what I would say in my opinion. But definitely think insight, perception being the 2 biggest ones, with survival coming up in a quick close third. All of those really kind of help with especially conversational things. Insight is so crucial. So after you decided that, we can come back over here. We still have our +1 point to put in. We can bring our charisma up here to 16 and maybe throw, I don't know, a point over here if we want. Whatever we can put it into dexterity, we can put it into charisma. The point is that with that singular point, It's very easy to get half points in dexterity or in constitution or what have you to push things around or do whatever with them. You could even do that and put 14, 14, 17. Just kind of go with whatever makes the most sense for you and what you have in mind. It is crucial to know that your constitution is pretty important as a druid because you will have a lot of concentration spells. Those spells require you to make a constitution check to see if the spell maintains activity if you get hit. Example here, I've cast Fairy Fire and my character is standing somewhere, someone runs up to them and hits them. Well, Fairy Fire will remain active for 10 turns if I pass that concentration check after I've been hit, which means it'll look at my constitution. If I fail that roll, then Fairy Fire gets shut off. So it's nice to have this at a very high rate, even if you're playing as a shapeshifting druid, which can cast concentration spells before they go into the shapeshift. For background and origin, this is really going to be entirely dependent upon you. I almost always go with a custom character, but you can definitely go with one of the origin characters if you so wish. Or you can play as the Dark Urge, which is a custom origin, but you will have a pretty wild time to deal with. It is a very dark and scary playthrough, but it is very fun at the same time. A lot of people have said it's the true way to play Baldur's Gate 3. So either if this is your second playthrough, I would definitely recommend you go Dark Urge for at least one of your characters. If it's your first playthrough, Dark Urge is very fun because then it shuts off or changes portions of the game that when you go through the second time around, you're like, man, I had no idea that existed. So please choose whichever one makes the most sense for you. You can press this little, you can click on any one of them and there's a little button to play and it'll show you the little backstory of the character. So for your background though, please choose the background that makes the most sense. You know, are you some kind of wayward noble that has forsaken the city and has now ranged out into the wilds to protect it? Are you a former acolyte turned druid? Are you a wised sage that is also at the same time a druid? Are you a recovering soldier that now spends the time in the grove as a druid, mending the earth that he once burnt? You know, whatever it is, choose the background that makes sense for you. What I will say is if you really want to min-max this, you just don't care about the background, Guild Artisan is a really great choice because you get insight and persuasion. This allows you to already have a really good conversational skill, and it gives you insight, which I think is arguably the best skill because there will be times in conversations where if you fail insight checks, you might miss certain points of romance. It's really good for conversations in pivotal moments in the game. It's one of the most important skills next to perception. So if you really want to min-max it, go with that. For spells and cantrips, we're going to start with a conversation about cantrips. Now, this is you're brand new to the game, your first time playing. Cantrip is a level 0 spell, meaning you can cast it as many times as you want every turn. Well, that didn't make sense. You can cast it every turn is what I mean. You don't have to worry about spell slots. Versus spells will use a corresponding spell slot that corresponds to its level. A level 1 spell can be cast in a level 1 spell slot, a level 2 spell in a level 2 spell slot, so on and so forth. But a level 1 spell can oftentimes be powered up into a level 2, 3, 4 spell slot, whereas a level 2 spell can never be cast in a level 1 spell slot. So you understand how it always kind of has a increasing scale. So for cantrips here, one of the best ones you're going to want to choose is guidance. You're going to use this in conversations. You're going to use this picking locks, disarming traps, and you don't even need to be the one that uses it. Anyone who goes to do those things can actually use this as a modifier into their character. So the target gains plus 1d4 bonus to ability checks. And anytime you do any of the aforementioned actions, those are ability checks. So maybe your main character is not the one that's going to disarm traps and pick locks. Maybe it's one of your rogue characters. You can still cast guidance on them in that screen. It's one of the best abilities in the entire game. Now, for the most part, you can just choose anything else here. If you want to go with more of a combat-oriented druid, go with Shillelagh. Your Staffer Club becomes magical. It deals 4 to 11 bludgeoning damage and uses your spellcasting ability for its attack rolls, which in this case is Wisdom. So if, let's say you're a fighter, right? Fighter uses that strength, or maybe Dex, who knows? Well, swap it. Now it's Wisdom. Really fun. Thorn Whip is kind of cool because it pulls creatures 10 feet closer to you. So maybe if you're trying to get things closer to you before you shapeshift, this can be a really good one as well. And also Poison Spray is fun to just kind of shoot a little nova of poison. Going into our spells here, you have quite a lot to choose from. Keep in mind that some of them are rituals, and I don't know if they are rituals as a druid versus other classes. Like take, for example, Longstrider as a ranger is a ritual. And you might be wondering, what does that mean? A ritual is a spell that can be cast without using a spell slot. And in the example here of Longstrider, it increases a creature's movement speed by 10 feet, and it lasts until a long rest. So this is a great way. You cast it on the entire party if it's a ritual, and it doesn't expend a spell slot, and they all can move faster for the entirety of the day. It's a really nice ability. Entangle is great because you can create a vine surface slowing down creatures, possibly entangling them. But what that does is that attack rolls against it have advantage, while its attack rolls and dexterity saving throws have disadvantage. So it's a great way to lock things down and help out the entire party. Charm Person is always really good. Thunderwave is a great cone attack, almost an area of attack, but a cone attack to just kind of shoot things back at the same time. I personally prefer Healing Word over Cure Wounds. Cure Wounds heals for more, but Healing Word is a ranged heal, and it's a bonus action, which I like as well. Cure Wounds is a melee ranged action, so you can kind of get a little bit less utility out of it, in my personal opinion. And then you can go with something like Ice Knife if you want. You can go with Speak with Animals, which we talked about. This will last until long rest as well, so you cast this the second you wake up, and you're good to go. Fairy Fire is a nice one. All targets within the light turn visible, and attack rolls against them have advantage. Just keep in mind here that this will work against you as well as the enemy. So if you're clever about it, this can be a really good one as well. But choose the spells that make the most sense for you and the druid you have in mind. Your feat options are going to depend on what druid you want to be, and this is also going to kind of influence some things for you. So let me just start this off by, if you wanted to be a Circle of the Moon Wildshape druid, and this kind of brings us back to the ability score discussion. Tavern Brawler works if you are in wild shape, but not in the way that it would work outside of it 100%. So it says when you make an unarmed attack, use an improvised weapon, or throw something, your strength modifier is added twice to the damage and attack rolls. Attack rolls, think of that as kind of like your chance to hit, right? I'll just say that to make it easier. You don't get the damage added, but you get the attack roll bonus added. So if you're going with a Circle of the Moon druid, swapping your wisdom for strength might not be a bad idea. And I didn't really talk about that in the abilities section because I'm not sure if Tavern Brawler is going to be patched out or not. So I didn't want to put that in that section and have it be something that is timeless and have it just end up getting patched out. So keep that in mind. It might get patched out, but Tavern Brawler does work with Circle of the Moon and being wild shape. Certain other things will work as well. And it's worth noting that anything that would give you an active ability or reaction, it'll not work in wild shape. But if it has a passive ability, it will. So let's take a look at Mage Slayer here. When a creature casts a spell within melee range of you, you have advantage on any saving throw against it. That'll work. You can use a reaction to immediately make an attack against the caster. That will not work. Enemies you hit have disadvantage on concentration saving throws. That will work. So Mage Slayer is really good for being in wild shape. Sure, you don't get your reaction capability, but you have the advantage of knocking things concentration out, and you have advantages on saving throws against spells that are cast against you in melee range. That's great. Mobile works 100% as intended if you're wild shape. So your movement speed is increased, and difficult terrain doesn't slow you down when you dash. You will also get, not Circle of Land, never mind. If you move after making a melee attack, you don't provoke attacks from your target. So those are all great things, and those will not be shut off by being in wild shape. So it's important to kind of know these things up front. Stuff like durable, it gives you, let's go to it, 1 constitution when you wild shape, which is great, and fully heals you on a short rest as well. One feat that is good for you, no matter if you're wild shaping or not, is Dual Wielder, because you can use 2 weapons. This gives you 2 weapon fighting, basically. You get that fighting style, but you also gain +1 bonus to armor class that will transfer into being wild shaped or not. So even as a Circle of the Land or Spores Circle Druid, this will benefit you just to kind of have a free +1 AC. It's nice, especially since you're not using your weapons in wild shape form, so you might as well get the free AC by jumping into a wild shape. So there's some really great things there. Warcaster is another really good one in general. You gain advantage on saving throws to maintain concentration spells. This is going to be active no matter what, wild shape or otherwise. But you also use a reaction that can cast Shocking Grasp at targets moving out of your melee range. That's going to be active if you are just not in wild shape, of course. Stuff like Spell Sniper is going to be particularly good if you're Circle of the Land Druid, focusing on more capabilities with your cantrips, but also so that whenever you want a crit hit, it will happen on a 19 and a 20, not just simply a 20. Also, if you are a Circle of the Land Druid and you want to stick to spells, Elemental Adept is going to allow you to make it so that you ignore the resistance to a specific element, and in addition, you can deal, say in this example, cold damage with the spell. You cannot roll a 1, so you can't ever outright fail. Lucky is a really great ability here. You gain 3 luck points, which you can use to gain advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, or saving throws, or to make an enemy re-roll their attack rolls. Now, from what I have seen, you cannot use Lucky in wild shape. Please, if that is wrong, feel free to correct me, but Lucky is a really good one. And of course, there's the age-old ability improvement. This is going to be great if you're, like I said, going to that 19, get you that final little thing in Act 1, which puts you into 20, or if you wanted to go with a Strength and Tavern Brawler for Wild Shape Druid, you can definitely go that route. It's not bad at all. You can split this up if you want and go like, oh, you know what, there we go. Now we got Wisdom at 18 for our +4 and Constitution at 16 for our +3, whatever makes the most sense for you. And a nice one is always Alert, because you had +5 bonus to initiative and you can't be surprised, which is always nice to have. Now from there, your Druid progression pretty much just looks like getting more spells as you level up in subclass features. If you're a Druid of the Land, you're looking at just simply getting stuff like Wild Strike or more forms as you level up. If you're Circle of the Moon, you'll get those Wild Strike and more wild shape forms. Circle of the Land is the one that's going to get access to its special land spells. But like I've said here, this is a Circle of the Moon Druid, and I'm still getting access to my typical Druid level spells as I hit those certain breakpoints, unlocking like level 3 spells at level 5, so on and so forth, a Circle level 3. But as you just kind of progress through this, you'll get more and more. We'll go all the way to level 8 to get our second feat, but Primal Strike and Panther and Wild Bear. And our Spore Druid would get our typical Druid level spells plus its Spore Druid spells as well here, right? Like, oh man, you know, Summon Woodland Being, Summon Minor Elemental, Dominate Beast, all sorts of great abilities as we push on here into our level 8 and get our next feat, as well as, of course, the Saber-Tooth Tiger Wild Shape for Circle of the Moon. But your progression is going to look pretty much like this as you progress all the way up to level 12. For multi-class options, you have quite a few to choose from, especially if you just simply want to go into getting more spells as a Druid of the Land and going into Cleric. Or if you want to jump into Ranger to get some accessibility into maybe your Spore Druid or your Druid of the Moon, you can just jump into another Wisdom class. You do also have some options to jump into some Rogue action to get some additional bonus actions. You can have some fun here with Fighter by getting Action Surge and Second Wind Up. It's worth noting that with Action Surge and Barbarian's Rage capabilities, you can kind of use them with Wild Shape, but you cannot use them while you are in Wild Shape. You would have to preempt it before a fight. Say, for example, hey, I'm going to run up to this fight. I know I'm going to want to Wild Shape into it, so the fight gets going. I have not Wild Shaped yet. I'm going to use my Barbarian Rage, and then I'm going to Wild Shape. Or, if I want to use my Action Surge, I jump into the fight. I haven't used my Combat Bear Shape yet. I use it, and then I Action Surge, and then I Shapeshift, and I'll have the ability to have that second action within that turn. So you can kind of finagle the bonuses of either a fighter or a barbarian, and you can get the benefits of certain armor classes into shapeshifted druids. Like, for example, the monk and the barbarian's unarmored defense capabilities. As long as you are not wearing that armor, before you Wild Shape, you will get the AC bonuses into your Wild Shape, which is very weird, but it does work. So you kind of have to finagle the way it is, and you can actually get that to kind of transfer over to your wild shape, so it makes for a lot of fun. But the focus that we're going to do here today is on Druid, a Spore Druid, and a Monk. And we can go 2 different options for the Monk, either Open Hand or Way of Elements. So we're going to start off here with Druid and bring us to level 6. On our route to 6, of course, we're going to choose Circle of the Spores and just go ahead and push through this process, getting us up there. I'm just going to choose any spells and feats as necessary. Here I'll probably go Warcaster since I'm not going to be shapeshifted. There we go. 5, and now 6. Now the reason we're stopping at 6 here is that we want to get access to Fungal Infestation. I could push us up to level 8 and get access to another feat, so we would get our feat from 4, our feat from 8, and then we could put 4 levels into our Monk, and that would give us some good capabilities. In fact, even as I look at the Monk spell list, that's probably maybe the more optimal route, is 8 levels into Druid and then 4 levels into Monk. Just go with whatever kind of fits the way you want to go with. Do you want to get more spells as a Way of the 4 Elements Monk, or more actions, well, more capabilities as a Way of the Open Hand Monk? Whatever makes sense for you, because at level 6 for Way of the Open Hand, you get Manifestation Bodies, which is the ability to do additional necrotic, psychic, or radiant damage, which is very fun. So this is going to depend here. Okay, we're level 6. We're going to press accept one more time. Now we're going to spice off into Monk. So like I said, we're going to just press accept here. And once we get into our final level of Monk, we'll choose whether we want to go Way of the 4 Elements and kind of lean into adding some additional spell casting to the whole naturey way of being a Druid and having the Monk kind of combination here, or we go into Way of the Open Hand and really kind of specialize into more of a fighter. Now keep in mind here, since we're a Monk, Monk weapons are any weapon you have a proficiency with. You don't have to use your unarmed attack. You can. You're more than welcome to, but you can just as well use a Monk weapon. All Monk capabilities will say unarmed strike or a Monk weapon. So you can have as much fun as you want here by kind of leaning into saying like, hey, you know what? I came into Monk with a scimitar specialization. Well, that counts as a monk weapon now, so you can have a lot of fun with that. Or you can go into clubs and staves and start using shillelaghs and have those all be Monk weapons and take advantage of casting Shillelagh, getting all the benefits of that, and going to town with it. Way of the 4 Elements I think is really fun though, because it gives you a lot of really cool spells. I really like it, and I think it's maybe the least optimal of maybe Way of the Shadow is actually least optimal of the Monk routes, but it's probably not as good as Way of the Open Hand. Way of the Open Hand people I think really like, and they think it's quite good. And this is going to grant me access to, you know, Fangs of the Fire Snake, hit your foe from afar. Your melee attacks now deal an additional 1 to 4 damage. Or now I get basically Thunderwave here. Or this ability, Sphere of Elemental Balance, is Chromatic Orb. So I can have Chromatic Orb on my Druid. I can use Water Whip, which can possibly pull a target towards you and knock it prone. I have this Fist of Unbroken Air, push the target and knock it prone. So many cool abilities here that maybe are more wizard spells than they are nature spells, and I can kind of spice them in. So let's just go ahead and press accept here. That'll bring me back to the game, and we can take a look at now all these abilities that we have access to. And we have our wild shape charges. I mean, we could even just change into a wild shape too. We have our fungal infestation charges, and we have our key points. So we have a lot of crazy things going with this subclass combination. Like I was saying here, I'll launch a Chromatic Orb if I so wish, or I can just simply use my Fungal Infestation to summon up zombies. I've got so many abilities to take advantage of, and it's why I think this is a really fun, really cool subclass option that I didn't actually even conceive until I started really looking at how the Spore Druid works and how it's very much a melee-oriented Druid and how it can just play so well with Monk to have a lot of fun and deliver a very different experience for you playing as a Druid Monk counterpart. But at that, it brings our video here to a close. So hopefully this helps you out in taking a look at the Druid, almost said Monk, taking a look at the Druid and getting a different way to play it. Are you going to go with the shape-shifting Druid, which is a lot of damn fun? Are you going to become a caster Druid that is just launching spells downrange? Are you going to become a Spore Druid that is leaning heavy into necromancy? And even then, you know, I talked about Spore Druids. You could also become an Oathbreaker Paladin and have fun with the ability to buff up your undead that you're summoning using the hate aura. You can do a lot of really cool things with Druid, and I think it's one of those classes that is slept on because it doesn't have the flash maybe of a paladin, which a lot of people have chosen, or the wit of a bard. But I think the Druid is a really fun one, and I think Larian is trying to tell us, hey, you know, we've done a lot of fun things with the Druid. It's why there are 2 Druid companions you could take advantage of in the game. So there's a lot of ways you can kind of leverage very fun and different Druids in a lot of different ways and play styles for Baldur's Gate 3. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any questions, any concerns, or you know what, you notice, hey, you know what, you said something wrong about Druid, the armor class for the Wildshape actually works like this, please, by all means, feel free to correct me in the comment section below. And if anyone, too, is jumping in the game for the first time, check out the comment section. People always have really good recommendations on ways to choose different multi-classes that I didn't talk about in this. Or, hey, you know what? This guy brought up some good feat choices, but here's some really good ones too, and here's how I use them. So if you're brand new to the game, please check out as many resources as you can. I want you to get as much information as possible. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. Have a good one and take care.